What's happening, guys? My name's Austin, and thank you for tuning into the second part of our two-part DevvE Roundtable. Now, in this episode, we dive into the massive application that DevvE has in AI and why the DevX chain is uniquely situated to be the data store for the artificial intelligence industry. Now, we also discuss our unique work in the carbon market space and how DevvE solves many of the credibility problems that plague the impact asset industry, the actual process for creating carbon credits, and the big value add that DevvE provides in streamlining that process. One thing I want you guys to watch out for is the crucial role that DevExchange plays in bringing all these pieces together. We also kick through some community submitted questions as well. So stay tuned for the culmination of the DevvE Roundtable. You're not going to want to miss it. So I want to talk briefly about the University of West Indies, the Five Islands research conference in AI that you were at recently, Ray. And I know that it got people thinking because AI was not one of the terms. I mean, obviously we hear it everywhere, but it wasn't one of the terms that we were thinking associating with DevvE in any way. But then, of course, DevvE can pretty much do anything blockchain can do. So I wondered if you might touch on as much as you can, but as specifically kind of how you see this playing a role.
Yeah, so actually, DevvE can do not anything blockchain can do, but DevvE can do things blockchain can't do, right? And so I don't know if people know this, but as a venture capitalist, I actually had my first AI investment 7 years ago. Was in the company at a 30 million market cap and exited at 1.2 billion. So when everybody's talking about AI right now, this is not the front of the wave. It's been going on for a decade. So very versed in AI and the problems and the processes for AI. And so one of the things that is a big problem for AI is, again, you need large data sets. So to get large data sets, we are the perfect platform because of our interoperability and the fact that we can either set up contractual or business mechanisms that enable the sharing of information and, connecting large pools to give AI access to all the data. We can restrict AI by giving it access to keys or not access to keys so that it is self-contained within a specific domain or rail set. So again, something that's important for governments. And our data store, as the AI people say, we are actually timed order data sets, which is so much more robust and valuable to teaching or working with AI algorithms. And also, when you one of the problems with AI is that the black box problem. When you start it, learning by itself, where it ends up, a lot of time there's a black box in between the beginning and the end. But in this case, we have an immutable record of everything and a review of any maybe embedded biases or structures or the requirements that would probably be needed for regulatory compliance of the AI systems we enable as well. So we provide so much critical benefits for AI in terms of, again, data store, structure, rails, transparency, regulatory compliance, and we do it at a speed and cost that makes it economically viable. So you can think of us as, my discussions with the different AI leaders is that we can be a critical piece to the development and the leveraging of AI and AI applications. One of the applications we were discussing was regulatory specific data that needs a format and a security structure for it to even be used, and then for putting in, and then you have again, this huge amount of data and these large data sets, and you want specific information out of that. Again, the small data that I was talking about before, that critical, actionable, valuable data. That's the piece that is meaningful. And we provide the foundation and infrastructure for AI to do that. So we have actually, with the West Indies, we're in discussions with them to partner because they're really driving leadership of AI in the islands, providing Web3 infrastructure or shard for AI development, and as a showcase for a number of very large companies. If you go back and look at that conference, who was there and who participated, and it's a lot of global leaders. And again, it's an exciting further I don't want to say attribute, because all of these capabilities are meaningful as a standalone. But when it comes to AI, it just kind of reinforces and highlights that value proposition that Web3 infrastructure layer we're providing enables. And so we are, if you think of NVIDIA as the chip for AI, you can think of us as kind of the data store for AI. And those are the reasons why. And that's why I was at that conference and asked to speak. And I've been asked to speak at a think tank discussion around AI, on the ethics of AI. And I could give you my thoughts on that as well sometime. But again, really what we have architected here is a foundational layer for all of the next generation of applications in lots of different ways from my perspective. So it's very exciting.
Well, and you had mentioned regulated data, and I think that was an important thing that you talked about there. So, again, I go through a process with a lot of this stuff of going, I know nothing. Let me learn a little bit about this and try and put this together in a meaningful way when it comes out of my mouth. However, I did kind of, get a grip on the data fragmentation issue, but there's a lot of data that, that almost no other chain could touch, simply because they don't meet the regulatory requirements, whether that be HIPAA data or governmental data or whatever the case may be. And that is something where we are uniquely situated to be able to handle. Am I accurate in saying that?
GDPR, that's all the information, is in Europe, right? I mean, you're absolutely correct. And so for us, those requirements and those regulations, I actually think of them as kind of walled gardens where we're allowed to play that others, really don't have access. And no matter what the regulation is, we can align to meet those requirements, or cross-jurisdictional requirements if it's, being the information is being transferred or shared across countries. And it's extremely powerful.
Thank you for breaking that down, Ray. So being time sensitive here, and we've been going at it for a while, but everyone's going to love it, so it doesn't matter. We do have some community questions that I was able to compile. And we, believe it or not, many of them do actually touch on the ESG portion, because I think that was something that people are just largely unfamiliar with. And so I wanted to kick through a few of these, if you guys don't mind, and I will mention the person, or at least the pseudonym, who gave us the question, just so they get a little shout out. So this is from Flappy. I love that name. In terms of the whole ecosystem, the DevvE ecosystem, wow, this is going to be a tough one. What percentage is the ESG carbon credit market estimated to be in 5 years' time?
Yeah. So let me, even though this is Duncan's specialty and he's creating a lot of this for us, I would say that the ESG is going to be 100% of our business, because we can align every piece to, make a positive impact, whether it's financial or, again, all the AI applications. Everything we're talking about can be aligned to make positive impact or be meaningful on multiple layers. And that's one of the things we like to focus on. The carbon markets is the potential there is huge, as Duncan mentioned before. We're talking about hundreds of billions of in terms of the size on an annual basis, and a lot of that will grow and be driven by a lot of pieces that we don't have control of. I personally think that the incentives are going to be not just top line from companies and their constituents or consumer issues, but I think governments are going to start making it a regulatory requirement, and countries like Spain are kind of leading the charge there, and I think that's just going to expand. So, and the other part is I think it will pick up in growth because of the tools that we bring and the things that Duncan is constructing. The integrity element that we enable will help drive that growth as well. So it'll be a big part. Think of the internet. We kind of overlay on the internet, and you can kind of pick and choose the different GDPs of the different sectors in the internet and kind of proportionate that down. And that would probably be a good general rule of thumb how things should break out or will probably eventually break out.
Yeah, and I would add, well, I'd first of all echo all of that. I would add, particularly strongly on the regulatory side, I think with the advent of some of the value add that we've been talking around about the digitalization of the data and the MRV, switching to DMRV, it's actually going to become more easy for these governments and institutions to actually regulate it. I've mentioned already that there are two markets, one which is compliance and regulated. The voluntary market, which is currently unregulated, has estimations of growing between 30 and 50 times by 2030. So that's a big increase. And as we've seen with our own crypto market, a large increase in influx of money into an unregulated market, can lead to some issues as all of the things we've mentioned: data integrity, transparency, trust, double counting, and so on. So governments and governmental bodies are going to get much hotter on that. Even if it's not obligated, buyers are going to be much more aware of the drawbacks of what people call lower quality units and credits and so on. So I agree with everything Ray just said, but I think that's really going to ramp up. And that's where, we already mentioned the unique advantages that we have. That also plays into that world as well. So, the regulatory aspects and the transparency is what's going to help drive an increase in, numbers. Effectively, the whole market is growing, and we will facilitate an expansion of that from our side.
Well, and from a numbers standpoint, man, you guys are great. It's like you knew what was coming. Freedom 756 says about the ESG sales, I assume he means carbon credit sales. Can you suggest our carbon credit generation capacity today? How much can we sell today, and what's the projected capacity by the end of the year and next year? Interesting question. What he's actually saying is, when can we see $100 million worth of carbon credits living on DevX?
So I'm going to send that over to Duncan in general, in terms of the market, sizing and things like that. One of the things for me, I just want to insert, and both these questions were great and not easy questions either, which is I also appreciate. But I just want to give context. So putting 100 million in value on the DevX, and having tokenized, that's one thing. But what's important to me too is, again, the creation of the marketplace, so that not only is it tokenized, but getting sellers and putting things together is one thing, but getting the buyers and having a product that they are willing to take money out of their pocket and hand over. That's what makes a market, right? And so I think that driving the one side with the acquisition of assets on the chain is going to happen very quickly and get large very quickly. What we're working on now and in parallel, but probably with more effort, is ensuring the buyers and ensuring to the buyers the quality and value of the product and what we are enabling. So with that, though, I will hand it over to Duncan.
Well, I'd echo that. I mean, we mentioned paradigm shift when we were talking about the exchange, but there are similar challenges to the current carbon markets, if you want to call them that, and let's call them that rather than ESG. You know, the biggest one being that, I mean, if we're upfront about it, there have already been carbon exchanges that have come up when blockchain first came up. People have, as I mentioned, people just talked about tokenization, but they're actually very limited in their value add to the whole process. You know, they tokenize existing credits and they just created an exchange without any buyers. And I think Ray is absolutely spot on when he says the real value add here is delivering the trust and transparency and the liquidity to buyers that are out there, but at the moment are put off by several negative headlines, as Ray mentioned, Financial Times only yesterday, and the suspicion that a lot of these credits are not actually fulfilling their promises. So in terms of actual numbers, what we can say is that the value add here is delivering not only the system, but the buyers. But people do need to recognize as well, environmental impact and assets and carbon credits is not an instant button that you can press. You know, I mentioned a workflow earlier. There is a workflow that you need to implement, and it isn't instant. But what we're building should enable the significant reduction in the time frame to creating some of these assets that have traditionally been 12 to sort of the time frame of 12 to 18 months from inception to sale, because of some of the historic, should we say, data collection and analog collection practices and paperwork practices. I mean, the paperwork alone around some of these credit creations is very, very large. And one thing we mustn't forget here is methodologies. They've been meticulously created by industry bodies, registry bodies such as Vera, Gold Standard, over 20 years. You know, they are very in-depth. You have to tick a lot of boxes to create these credits. So it is a lengthy process currently, but the value add that I think that we layer on top is the significant increase in the speed, trust, and transparency to bring the buyers and the liquidity into the market.
Wonderful. And it does seem, at least just from listening to you guys explain it, that blockchain is such an obvious solution. And I was chatting with Davin yesterday, and I brought a question to him that one of our ambassadors had, which was, have we gotten in front of the big three certification or the auditing companies to pitch this to them? And his response back was, they're basically being inundated by blockchain pitches, but we kind of have an ace in the hole that we're going to bring to them. And I don't even know if I can even say that. But that was kind of the way he put it to me.
Yeah. So that's a good way to characterize that. So, and again, I hate to put us into the bucket of blockchain because, again, as an investor, when I first looked at the blockchain space, each one of the protocols had kind of a core competency that they were leveraging. Bitcoin storage of value, Ethereum with the smart contracts, speed was one, the throughput was another, each one. But if you looked at them all, we actually have 5 orders of improvement on each one of those individual core competencies aggregated into a single entity. So, if you put us into the context of blockchain, then it isn't really fair because we're so much faster, we're so much less expensive, we're so much less energy usage. We actually have the IP around, the ability for fraud, theft, and loss protection, regulatory compliance, all of those things. So you can't really compare us apples to apples with other blockchain solutions when they come to the table. And the fact that we're green, we're 1/10 millionth the cost of Ethereum, and that we are regulatory compliant, that pretty much eliminates any competition on any global registry or any regulatory managed domain, in terms of aces in the hole. And that's not even the aces in the hole that they were talking about. So again, I think part of the problem is just the framing of the question in that regard. So yes, everybody, immediately understands that, blockchain would be good to solve this. The only problem is blockchain brings its own problems. And what we've done is solve those problems within the context of blockchain that enables new paradigms, including these solutions that we're talking about.
And it reminds me a little bit of carrying with what you're saying there, in 2017, everyone was just announcing the blockchain was a solution to pretty much every industry, whether it was medicine, voting, shipping, charity, financial, you name it, blockchain's the answer. And actually, whilst it has a strength in some respects, as Ray just mentioned, there are serious drawbacks to it. One thing I would say, though, is that if you look at the actual challenges and what needs the value add here, if we're talking about the carbon market, DevvE ticks every box. That we've talked about them, or the platform that we'd like to build ticks every box, because all of the problems it has, double counting, greenwashing, transparency, trust, all of those can be solved and or be made significantly more efficient.
Yeah, and solving those problems in an economically viable fashion is the key, right? At the end of the day, right. It's the economics. And again, everybody had that vision at the beginning, as Duncan mentioned, but the technology wasn't there. And that's why, their visions were true if the technology was there to fully enable what they dreamed. But that's what we have now. And the pioneers in the space were genius, no question. Bitcoin is genius. Ethereum was genius. All of that is absolutely incredible. But, so was the first airplane. But you're not going to build an airline with, what flew at Kitty Hawk, right? And so we have the next generation of this capabilities. And again, following the vision of the pioneers and the people that, right, deservedly so, created so much value and impact in the marketplace and created this domain. But we really have the next generation of technology. And like I said, I hate putting us into the context or the discussion of blockchains because when you look at the nth version of blockchain and what you would like it to do and be, we generally fit that model and solve those problems. So our problem is, what do we do with this, right? So we just be the infrastructure for Web3 and then, drive the business utility with DevvE. And that's the plan in a way that aligns everybody's interest to make positive impact in the world.
You mentioned us being the next gen of this type of technology. And am I right to say not only are we the next gen of this technology, but we're somewhat future-proof for any technology that's going to come down the pike due to our ability to adapt? Am I correct in saying that?
You're absolutely incorrect, not only because of our ability to adapt, but because we also have a huge technical overhang in terms of capacity and capability that's not even needed at this point in the world where things are. As things, grow exponentially, we have plenty of technical overhang to manage that in a linear fashion. But as you said, as things happen that aren't linear, problems or changes, or even quantum computing, things along those lines, we're able to, because of our flexibility, switch out our security algorithms or, change different paradigm aspects or architecture to align with those as well. So our flexibility is really one of our among many key attributes that we have.
And that shouldn't be understated. If you look at, you mentioned the airplane, but if you look at how fast, for example, technology like the iPhone has come along in 5 to 10 years, you wouldn't want to necessarily use a blockchain that was 10 to 15 years old. I'm going to go back to the blockchain analogy because, they have come a long way. I remember, EOS launching at a big fanfare of, how many TPSs it could do and all of that thing. But you wouldn't use it now. So not that I'm saying anything negative about EOS, but it is technology does move quickly, and being able to be future proofing next gen, or in some cases only gen. There are some parts of this that we're the only possible solution that can deliver the value add needed for the improvements that we're talking about. So, it is very, very important, to remember that.
So the next question, and we have 4 left. I'll be sensitive to time. I don't want to keep you all here too long. This one's from AJ Hayes, and I'm gonna reword it just slightly to make it a topic that we can actually dive into. And he says, of all the business opportunities DevvE is working on, which one do you think is closest to full state execution? And the second part of his question is, how is the DevvE token intricately involved in these various parts of the business?
Yeah, that's a great question. And part of the reason why I think it's a great question, because it's kind of the when you think about, when I think about a strategic plan on prioritizing things and driving things forward, and how do I prioritize things, and how does it impact, this global opportunity set that we're talking about? So we are able to, again, I refer to the game. So if you look at everything in the game, and that's being run, we can do all of that right now. We can do payments. We can do marketplace. We have a marketplace. We can do, millions of transactions. All of those things. I think the answer, and to kind of change. So, instead of giving that broad, we can pretty much do everything right now answer, I would say the accumulation of that is going to be twofold. One is going to be the exchange, and 2 is going to be the exit, the on-ramp and off-ramp to that exchange. Those pieces, and that off-ramp and on-ramp providing connectivity to the greater financial ecosystem. Those 2 pieces are the priorities and will drive all the other applications and aspects, and enable the business utility of them, and increase them by orders of magnitude. So I think, again, those are priorities for us, but we've spent a lot of time creating and hardening all the technologies to enable all those other applications. And the rollout of them is, there's dominoes that will fall that will bring the next ones and next ones. It's stuff that we've been building and tactically implementing for a long time. And we appreciate everybody's patience as we've done this, but it usually, I've found as an investor, it takes about a decade to be a overnight success. My hope was to bring us to 5 years instead of 10. So we need that to be this year.
Hear, hear. Now, as far as the token is concerned, with being sensitive to how we even discuss this, but so it is kind of intricate to, if somebody wants to use a shard they hold and they would pay with DevvE. If somebody wants to unlock the impact assets, they would have to stake DevvE for a period of time. You had mentioned an interesting use case earlier about mitigating spam by charging a fraction of a DevvE for each email. So I think what people really want to know is, well, I know what they want to know, but what are the demand drivers on the DevvE token within all these business aspects?
So just going to the example I just gave, if you're going to be trading on the exchange, you're going to need DevvE the way you need ETH now. If you're going to be using our wallets for the on-ramp, off-ramp, if you're going to be using our financial ecosystem, each one of those wallets is going to need DevvE. And you can use DevvE as direct currency as well, but it's going to be fueling the whole infrastructure ecosystem.
Well put. Beautifully. All right, let's keep kicking on here. We've got 3 more questions that I think are really well done. And this is from Swoosh. And what Swoosh asks is, many upstart exchanges have had great functionality, but still failed to attract volume and have, slowly died off as a result. What will DevExchange do differently to attract the masses? And I think maybe he also might be asking a liquidity question there as well.
Yeah. So again, great question. And again, I will kind of tap into my experiences. My focus as an investor has always been on innovation that's off the innovation curve and next generation technologies. My funds were best in class according to Preqin, top funds for the decade. And I'm just saying that as reference to give some credibility to the next statement I'm going to have, which is the number one issue I've always had with these types of technologies is the getting the message out to the marketplace, because a lot of times people don't believe it. It's too good to be true. It's off the innovation curve. Or they can't internalize it because they already have roadmaps, expectations of how things should work. And so again, it's hard to penetrate. Again, it doesn't mean that the best technologies always work is the other thing, right? So you're fighting against all three of those things. And in this case, it's even harder because when you're talking about a consumer product, which is what the exchange could, potentially you could package it in that format, that makes it even harder because you have to communicate it not to one or two companies to drive it, the growth, but to these individuals. So we have, so again, a big part of this is going to be the communication, the marketing. We need the Austins, the people that can, translate our thoughts and, and thinking in a way that we get caught up in because, we live and breathe this stuff all day, and we don't even know what we sound like anymore to a normal person, or, even a person that is educated in this, but is doesn't live and breathe DevvE, right? And so we need to communicate that in the right way. We also need the credibility of top partners, which we're bringing to the table, not only technology and infrastructure partners, but also marketing and brand partners, regulatory partners. And when I say regulatory partners, I mean non-regulatory entities that manage in the financial services space that will give credibility to the institutional investors. And if we're able to, again, kind of attack from the top and bottom all of that market education that I'm talking about, and bringing those credible partners to the table, then that will again give us the points of the spear to push into the market to drive growth. I can't tell you exactly what that growth will look like. I can tell you though that we will gain market share and educate people, and hopefully, the word of mouth also will be a part of it, just because we'll seamlessly enable everything that people don't expect in a way that they can manage it within their limited, understanding or capabilities. And, oh, by the way, we'll solve big problems in the industry that are concerns for the people that manage and trade on exchange. And I think that will be a key driver as well. So we have every advantage. If we aren't successful with it, it's on us. That's us, because we have everything you would want as an advantage going into the market. As an investor, I always say, all I want is an unfair advantage. In this case, we have, a full portfolio of unfair advantages and partners, and we're taking everything from the top down. And so yeah, all that aggregated push experience and expertise is why we're going to be successful. And again, if we're not, wow, that would be a big failure on our part.
Amazing explanation. And as I'm reading through these questions, I do realize we've covered most of them. So there's only one more that I want to throw at you, if you guys don't mind. And the question is, will there ever be a public API or maybe a public shard where people can test and feel the blockchain? I know that is something where most people coming into DevvE go, well, all right, how can I play? Right? And we're like, well, you can go to Litcraft and you can send an asset to Glassblock, and they're going, wait a minute, so will there ever be a time where it has that functionality, or will public shard ever be available?
So it has that functionality now. So our problem is bandwidth, right? So because of our limited just resources, people, et cetera, we're kind of limited to partners where we allow them access to the shard and give them a competitive advantage, and we partner with them to bring their products to the space. And that's kind of the top of the development pyramid. And also with exchanges where exchanges with enterprises where we're able to give them a shard and have them build their ecosystems out. So those are kind of our priorities now. And you would be shocked or maybe not shocked at the requirements for support if you had individual developers on. And really at this point, our resources are focused on those partners. But we also, wanted to give a path to people with good ideas with the innovation shard, to give them a path to be able to share with us, their concepts and be able to pick the ones that we think resonate with us and align with our current near-term interests and get them on board and working on that. And we have a couple of partners that we'll be announcing soon that fit into that domain. But again, we will hopefully get to the point where we have the growth and the resources and everything in place where we can then just start, giving people access and allowing them to plug in and create on their own or however they want to manage that. But today, we're just not able to.
I think these are great questions because they're honing in on obviously what people have seen, effectively as the drawback of other, we'll call them blockchains or projects in the market. Mentioned liquidity and exchanges. Here we're talking about public access / community building, I suppose if you want to call it. Some of the other chains have been very successful. Taking Solana as an example, by having other people build on that chain. So I think these are great questions. And, as Ray said, it is about prioritizing, delivering what we have a number of things on the table. So, hopefully that will, answer the question. But they are great questions, right to the point.
And to your point, that is the model for most of the chains is, let's even buy people to get them building on the chain, because the more usage on it, that's where the value of their token goes up, et cetera. But for us, it's a completely different value proposition because our chain is a competitive advantage to any application being built. And we're looking at global applications being built and partnering with large entities to create that. And it doesn't mean we don't want to be able to give access to people to, create, because I guarantee that the Picassos and Da Vinci's of programming aren't going to be with those big partners that we're working with initially. But those are the ones that help us enable the infrastructure build that will allow those Da Vinci's and Picassos to plug in, and we be able to give them the resource and the support they need so that they can build. And I'm looking for the day that we're at that point. But again, we have a completely different business model, paradigm, capability structure. It's again almost we're again talking about us in terms of the blockchain bucket, and I really, one of the things we have to do is pull our community out of that kind of contextual thinking. We are a completely different animal, and thinking outside of that and bringing us ideas that fit that new capability and alignment. Those are things that would activate us and be able for us to again add support and what we can to help them execute on those types of visions. But replicating the current blockchain model, and I'm doing the air quotes, is not something that is a priority for us.
Wonderfully put. Gentlemen, thank you for letting me keep you on a recording for 100+ minutes. I appreciate that. We're probably going to have to break this up in a couple of different chunks, but that's great. No problem there. Thank you so much for being here. And to Davin, who has a jet, excellent job as always. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. My name's Austin, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.